Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We appreciate having you here. Just a few housekeeping announcements before we get started. For students, you can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to our presenters at any time. Your cameras and microphone are turned off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This will just be one of many sessions, so we encourage you to sign up for additional sessions if you're interested, as well as this presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website where you registered. With that being said, I'd like to now turn it over to our presenters.
Thank you, Kelsey. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. I'm Leslie Davidson. I'm the Vice President for Enrollment at Beloit College. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this evening's Liberal Arts in a Pandemic session. I'm joined by Ron Cole, Provost at Allegheny College, and Eric Boynton, Provost at Beloit College. Thank you to you both for sharing your Saturday evening with us. Ron and Eric will each respond to 5 questions, during which we invite you to submit your questions as they occur to you using the Q&A feature. And we'll devote a few minutes at the end to answering your questions, concluding promptly at 45 after the hour. So last spring, we all scrambled to react to the unexpected, a pandemic. Beloit and Allegheny colleges took it a step further, creating opportunity in the challenges to innovate on behalf of their students. Far from stymieing these places, COVID served as catalyst, fueling progress on key initiatives and priorities. In the process, we kept our students and our commitments to them front and center. Those commitments include educating and supporting students while they're on campus and preparing them to shape and succeed in the world that awaits them. That these are both liberal arts colleges and colleges that change lives is no accident. Allegheny President Hillary Link recently identified that, quote, connecting different approaches and seeing through different lenses are indeed key to future success in solving the large-scale issues confronting our world. And Beloit Provost Eric Boynton, in a recent Chicago Tribune interview, asserted that a world in crisis needs a liberal arts trained population. Rather than lamenting a decline in the liberal arts, he says, we need to recognize an opportunity for the liberal arts to rethink and reimagine itself. While drawing on a liberal arts approach to confront the unexpected and wicked problem of a global pandemic, Beloit and Allegheny are rethinking and reimagining what an undergraduate education looks like. Colleges that change lives don't just change them during the 4 years students spend on campus. They give students the gift of the skills and the agency to continuously change their own lives and to change the world in imaginative and meaningful ways. The vision of places like Beloit and Allegheny encompasses a steadfast commitment to their students' futures, and a world which desperately needs people who can navigate challenging and multifaceted problems with wisdom, agility, and integrity. Let's dig into what you can learn from their approaches about the kind of experience you would have on these campuses. So first question, reflecting on this past March, April, and May, a colleague of mine commented that in times of stress, everyone goes to their true north. The same is true for institutions. Eric and Ron, what aspects of college culture and character are clearer on your campuses now than they were 6 months ago? Eric, you want to start?
I'm sorry, Leslie, who starts?
I called on you.
Okay, excellent, okay. Yeah, thanks for that great question. So yeah, things get clarified at that moment when you see the future opening up in a completely different way than you had expected even a few weeks prior. And I think it's true that the North Star for many places like colleges that change lives, and Beloit in particular, is this extremely healthy, bordering on unhealthy, but extremely healthy fixation on student-centered learning, on attending to the student experience, whatever the context, right? Figuring out how to build a college that centers the student experience at the very heart of everything you're doing, educationally, socially. How you think about the institution should be about highlighting and enriching that student experience. And so if you have that North Star out there, this is a time in which COVID is now sweeping over the nation. We need to think about student-centered learning, even in a time, for instance, last spring, where we had to move off campus. Incredible innovation then happens because the whole campus community, this is not just certain administrators thinking this way, It's the entire campus community, all professors, all staff, and students' expectations is that I'm going to have an enriched student experience. And so the kind of innovation that COVID was able to establish in these institutions, the ways in which we started to think about what can we do now in this current situation that extends and enriches the student experience. And I'll just give you two examples at Beloit. The first is we thought, okay, how can we deliver our curriculum next year, knowing that COVID is going to reach into the 2021 year, the year we're in right now? And we thought of an innovative way to deliver our curriculum in mods, which is breaking up the semester into 2 sections and teaching 2 courses in each mod. It's an interesting way to build in flexibility, to allow students to drill into 2 courses at a time versus 4. It also adds some interesting hinge points in the semester. And then the other example I'll put forth here is this: over the summer, in order to establish a community that really took to heart the ways in which we're going to have to live together right now this year in a COVID moment. We need to mask up. We need to remain distant. We need to think about de-densifying campus. All these kind of ways of living together in a healthy way that extends the student experience. So it can bring students to campus, enrich their learning experience. And yet we need to make sure that we're all in the community, treating each other as well, keeping each other healthy. And that's where we turn to our students this summer. And so over the space of 2 months of the summer, our students across the classes actually developed a student statement of culture. And it's a statement of culture that every student now abides by. So this is not a college asking you to behave in a certain way. These are your peers and your friends having the expectation that we're in this together. And that kind of community involvement that can happen at a small liberal arts institution where student-centered learning is fostered because students want to live together in this really interesting environment is a tremendous example for me. I don't know, Ron, I imagine you have hundreds of others.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Those are wonderful examples. And I'll echo some of the same principles and share that students at Allegheny, much like we've learned from Beloit, are tenacious in their passion for wanting to learn and learn on campus, in person. And, you know, I love that question about shining what is our true north and how does this crisis help illuminate that? And I'll say that at Allegheny, really this crisis helped us shine a light on the same type of core values that Eric described at Beloit. That's that personalized, student-centered education, and also a collaboration, a spirit of collaboration around interdisciplinary problem solving, right? And I think that came through in Eric's examples as well. But at Allegheny, when we think about student-centered and personalized education, you know, everybody had to pivot last spring and figure out how to transition immediately from in-person, really close hands-on learning to learning how to teach remotely and learn remotely. And throughout the summer, though, thinking ahead that we could be in a similar position this year, throughout the summer, the Allegheny faculty really dug into their courses, not just learning how to use technology, right? We needed to learn that, but how to teach their courses by focusing on universal course design, ensuring that each course is designed around a clear set of learning outcomes that can be met regardless of mode of delivery, so that the faculty and their courses can meet students where they are. That to me, and our faculty dove in and did that because of who they are. And I imagine the same is true at Beloit and other colleges that change lives. It's about that student-centered learning. A really great example that I'd like to share about collaborative interdisciplinary problem solving. When we were recognized what we would be approaching this academic year, we formed operational groups to plan for moving back to campus this fall and how we're going to work this academic year. And the operational groups, you can imagine, included academics, residence life, COVID testing and health protocols, facilities, communications, all the things that make a college run. But as we formed these groups, our president, President Link, charged us to include members from outside of our main areas, avoiding those silos of only using resident experts, right? So So the academic planning group that I led, we had members from student life, from finance, from athletics, from physical plan. And building these diverse teams really promoted diverse perspectives and helped foster innovation. And so the idea was to change your point of view and then thereby changing your solution. And that really, those are things that we tend to do regularly, but never really elevated them into that, thinking of them as our North Star as keenly as this has brought it forward.
Great.
So Leslie, yeah.
Ron, you got me thinking just for a second here, Leslie. So there's a way in which you describe that collaborative, all hands on deck, and then fostering the different disciplines and different approaches to problems and putting it all together. I mean, Ron, so that's how our institutions came to meet the problem, but that's also the kind of education that we're offering to our students. And this is that great synergy of the way the institution is running and the kind of education you can expect to get from a place like Beloit and Allegheny, right?
That's right. We model this in the work that we do. And that's what really struck me as I reflected back on the work over the summer. It was hard to see it when you're in the middle of it, right? But when you could step back and look at what we did, we developed, it was modeling exactly how we hope our students engage in their education.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think this next question will build very much on that thought. What has each of your colleges learned and implemented as a result of this experience that will positively impact your students well into the future? New programs, new realizations, new approaches. Ron, we'll give you first crack this time.
So wonderful question, Leslie. I at the highest level, what I think we've learned is how to hone our skills for shaping challenges into opportunities, right? You can look at a challenge and cower, you could look at a challenge and walk right into that cloud of adversity and become stronger through the work that you do to overcome that challenge. And I know that Eric and I have talked, and that's what's happened at Beloit, it's what's happened at Allegheny. I believe we are stronger and will continue to be stronger institutions because of how we approach these challenges. So give you an example of some of the things that are long lasting, things that we did now that I think are going to last into the future. When the pandemic struck, we knew that we needed holistic health and safety planning, right? That was informed by health experts and best practices. Well, we don't have a local Department of Health office in our immediate area. So we formed our own. We formed the Allegheny College Health Agency in partnership with our local medical center, and included epidemiologists from our faculty in the region, mental and physical health specialists, alumni experts in pandemic disaster management and microbiology. And this health agency has opened up brand new channels for student and faculty partnerships with our medical center and local and national health agencies that will continue years into the future. And that health agency is what's helping us develop and stand behind the plans that we have in place for managing our campus through this pandemic. Another quick example, we, much like Beloit, thought about their academic calendar. We revised our calendar for this year to include a new January module. And we broke the spring semester up into 2 modules. The January module students take 1 course, and then the rest of the semester from February through May, the students take the remaining courses. But that January module is a space where interdisciplinary and focused learning can take place. So we launched a whole series of social justice seminars where faculty from different disciplines are working together to develop new learning opportunities based on current issues. The pandemic, social justice issues, the systemic racism that we're contending with throughout our country. And our students are engaging in these types of courses, particularly in these 3-week January modules. We actually launched some over this summer as pilots to see how they'd work. And then we're going to launch them as full courses in January. So those are a few examples that I think we've met challenges with new ways of learning and new ways of innovating that we're going to keep.
Yeah, I love that, Ron. Yeah, so right, the calendar, the form of delivery of the curriculum, right, that got sprung into the air, and all sorts of creative things are happening at colleges like ours. And in that regard, it's kind of, so now I live in Wisconsin, and there's actually farmland all around me. It's kind of like where you turn the soil and you break, well, you know about this, Ron, you break up the microbes. I imagine there's stuff in the soil, you get it out. And so when you plant again, like the soil is all the more fertile for growing whatever it is you're growing. And so this situation in which our faculty, who are already innovative teachers and already always thinking about how it is they're going to teach their course, then had to incorporate new forms of technology that maybe they hadn't wanted to do in the past, but they had to now. And so there's all this way in which the last few months have begun to build out a group of people that I'm going to call super teachers. I mean, these are professors at small liberal arts that now they know how to teach in such a way that knowledge sticks. I mean, so this is not just content delivery. You just don't go somewhere and just get filled with knowledge. This is a space in which you live in every nook and cranny of this institution. And faculty know that, and they've always found ways to harness that personal kind of relationship so that you not only know things, but you know how to utilize the things you're learning. You understand the skills involved. And that combination of in-person attention with a technological component that's now embedded in our campuses in ways that hasn't been before. I mean, watch out in terms of just exciting, dynamic pedagogy going on in these places. These will be the kind of schools you will want to come and learn. This is the place that will fire you up for learning and then launch you into your career in ways that other places are just going to be left behind, I think, in the near future. In relation to that, we had to find ways to continue to build relationship with the students. And so one thing at Beloit, we instituted, actually we had it in the works, but it got fast-tracked in COVID moment, instituted a new advising program called Advanced Mentoring Program. And so immediately when you deposit at Beloit, you'll get attached to your academic advisor within 72 hours of deposit. And then that person, right, walks with you through your high school, into your high school years, into the summer, and into the first 2 years of your experience at Beloit. So it's kind of this relationship building that starts early and often, and it's not just about courses. It is about courses, but it's also about making sure that you understand what Beloit has to offer, you understand the curriculum, you understand the ways in which your experience at Beloit can be utilized and harnessed the moment you step foot on campus. So that advising, advanced mentoring program is one of the new things that came out of this. We instituted, much like Allegheny, a teaching and learning initiative. It was kind of an initiative that was put up over the summer that involved building out summer bridge courses. So courses specifically to bring students into the college experience over the summer. But it was kind of like a field hospital. So it wasn't your father's Oldsmobile. I guess I can't say that joke. It was like a field hospital. You set it up and it's like a tent, and you bring it in, and it's particularly suited to the situation we find ourselves currently. And so it was teaching and learning around the ways in which professors need to think about building those relationships, even in the COVID moment. So yeah, I think it's calendar. I think it's advising. I think it's I would say, I might go so far as to say improvement in teaching, but it's also innovation in teaching. I think that's where the improvement is. It's just sheer innovation of how it is we're going to get our knowledge across.
Thank you both. So during these times, we're all navigating an unusual degree of stress and uncertainty. How are you supporting your students during this time?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Leslie. So first things, let's just cross the T's and dot the I's. So all our students are our students, whether they're on campus or if they're remote studying at home, taking our courses online this semester. And so our health and wellness office has built out telehealth. And so there's all these ways in which you can remain healthy as a student and maybe not contact the person face-to-face. So there's telehealth options. There's ways in which we support our students to make sure that mental health is a priority, right down to flu shots being absolutely free for everybody on campus. But even more than that, I think that the ways in which we care for our students is all the innovations that we're talking about, that Ron and I are talking about right now. we're not doing these things just, I mean, they are fun in a way, but we're not doing them just for fun. We're doing them because we care deeply about our students. We want to see them flourish. And the way to make them flourish is to make sure that where they are now, if they're on campus or they're with us in this learning environment, we need to make sure that they're supported. And some of the key ways of that support is to be clear about the direction that we're heading. So if we can be clear about what the semester looks like, if we can be clear about the calendar, if we can be clear about the schedules, if all advisors are really up to date with what's going on campus, and then communicate that tenaciously. I think now is the time in which you cannot over communicate. And we have to communicate with students and parents and alumni and let them know that we're institutions that are forward thinking and have all this in front of us. So it's not the feeling like you're coming to campus and then all of a sudden you're lost on campus. It's this deep recognition that these schools are paying attention to you, and we want to see you succeed. So I think it's making sure you have the resources to be healthy. Communication, I think, is important. And then sharing the plans that make sense. And so not just continuing on as usual, this is the innovation, but recognizing we need to take certain steps in order to ensure the health and safety of our students in this particular time. Ron, what do you got?
Yeah, boy, Eric, I love that. What you're describing sounds, what I hear in that is really empowering the student in part of the process, right? And by empowering a student, by empowering students and engaging them, it helps reduce some of the uncertainty, right? Which in turn helps reduce some of the anxiety, some of the unknowns. And I think it's brilliant. And we too have tried to do similar things. So flipping back to our calendar changes that we actually implemented last spring ahead for this year. Students were involved in that decision-making, in reviewing the options and weighing in. And our student government was involved in that, as well as conversations around our grading policies last spring and into this academic year. It was important to us to engage our students and have that voice. And by doing so, we found that, there's an amazing amount of anxiety. We're all trauma-induced right now. But by engaging the students in that process, we think it really helped them feel ownership. We also learned along the way, to your point, Eric, you cannot over-communicate. And we learned steps along the way where we should have communicated differently or more so. So we're also learning as we go through this. But some other specific examples. We have our health agency is in partnering with our counseling professional development center. We too have established a telehealth process. We have an entire approach to taking care of students who are quarantined or in isolation, both holistic, as far as mental and emotional health, as well as physical well-being. Another piece of the anxiety in this moment too is just the financial stress that students are going through. Families are in just very different situations than they may have ever imagined they would be in. And so something that we did that we've been working on, much as you described, Eric, you had something in the works, and then this actually was a catalyst to bring it forward. We had a program that we wind up calling our Success Grant program that was in the works, and we launched it almost immediately. And that's a microgrant program for students that have unmet or unexpected expenses, including things like technology. Any student that needed a laptop has one or other device. Travel for family emergency, textbooks even, or even unmet costs on bills. Those are ways in which we're trying to specifically engage students by reducing some of that anxiety. It's helping them to be able to think more about their learning and less about surviving, right? And that's, I think, just segues very quickly to holistically. I mentioned before the word trauma. We're all experiencing the stress of this pandemic, and that is affecting the way in which our responses happen, right? So under normal circumstances, there's a little bit of stress, you might respond just a little bit in terms of the reaction to that stress. The more that compounds and the more that builds, a little bit of stress can really elevate your stress response rate. And we have to recognize that our students are experiencing that, we're experiencing that, right? So how do we help to recognize that and understand that if a student says, geez, I'm really stressed out because I have 2 assignments that are due close in time, under normal circumstances, you help a student navigate through that with time management. At this moment, that is a compounding factor over everything else they're feeling. And so we have to help our students recognize that so they can self-assess. And we're trying to do that in and out of the classroom. And hey, that's true for everybody, all of us, faculty, administrators, staff, you folks in the audience. There's some self-care in that will be really important to recognize.
Yeah, I love that, Ron, because I mean, in some way you're describing the learning community. And in the time of COVID, the learning community takes on a slightly different valence, right? We cannot learn unless we have the community you just described, the community that says, you know what, we need to make sure that you have the technology. We got to make sure that you have the mental health services. We got to make sure that you are fed even or warm before you can even think about learning. And I just want to say, I mean, knock on wood a little bit, but small liberal arts in the moment of COVID are doing very well with health and well-being on campus in ways that is not so true across the higher ed sector. And I swear, Ron, it has something to do with this. It has something to do with this community building that is at the very DNA of our institutions, that we know you cannot learn, and we don't want you just to be a head getting filled with knowledge. We want you to be someone who's transformed over the space of their 4 years. And you can't do that without community.
So do you have advice for students as they approach their college search during this very, very unusual year?
Ron, you want to grab that one?
Sure. I mean, it's an important question, and it's hard to give advice in such uncertain times. So when I think about that, I think of things around mindset, finding a mindset, thinking about ways of finding opportunity, much like we've described at our campuses. Students, I think, approaching higher education, attending college right now, should be thinking of finding opportunity in that uncertainty and in that change. My advice would be, as you're looking at institutions where you might find a home of learning, look for that personalized outreach. Not just from admissions offices, but from faculty and staff on a campus. Advice would be finding and using resources. Know what those resources are. I mean, what Eric described for Beloit about that immediate attachment to advising is critically important. And we try to do the same type of thing where advising it holistically is really important. And I think this last point, I would say, in or out of a pandemic, but students know that you need to engage and do the hard work. Right? It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be incredibly rewarding when you engage in the work.
Yeah, I love that. So I might go back to Leslie's first question about the true north. That might be a good place to start for advice, right? If you're a student, figure out that true north for you. What is that? What is that direction you're heading? And get a hold of that, and get a hold of that clearly. And then I don't know. I mean, it sounds like maybe even the topics of our conversation tonight. Talk to people about how that looks for you. Be in communication with those whom you trust. And then, to echo Ron's point, look for places that are willing to work with you, that are willing to be flexible with you, but don't promise light lifts or easy ways forward, right? It's the recognition that, this is going to be some hard work. College you're going to invest in it. And when you lift those heavy things, the payoff, the transformation is pretty important. So look for places that are willing to work with you and help you lift things, but be cautious of those who say this is a walk in the park, because the more you invest, the more you get out of it.
So what should everyone in our audience walk away this evening understanding about what they can expect from an Allegheny or a Beloit education?
Yeah, I love that. So, I mean, I think it should have kind of come out in the wash over these past few minutes now, but I would say, Ron, for me, it's a college that changes lives. We're talking about transformation. I think it comes down to the 4 years that you're at our institutions in this community of learning, in this dynamic space of learning, of really altering your perspectives, of introducing whole new horizons and ways of seeing. In those 4 years, where you feel connected to your peers, your faculty, other staff on campus, that kind of nurturing environment is like filling a rocket up with fuel. So it's an education that both prepares you for the future. I mean, it's preparing you for amazing outcomes, for successful careers, for meaningful lives of really interesting years and years to come. But it's doing that by engaging you in this dynamic way during your time. So as you fall into the work of these 4 years at college, when you fall into the love of learning, don't think that the love of learning somehow is not related to your future outcomes. Those things are linked together. And the kind of education that we're offering at places, colleges to change lives, is this kind of filling your rocket ship up with fuel, so that watch out where you go in the future. And so what you study now matters to who you are in the future. And then I would say a college that changes lives, it changes lives again and again and again and again and again. So it's not just up to the 4 years you find your life changed. You find your life changed again years later. And I know that Ron and I have personal experiences, both having attended small liberal arts colleges, of how being able to pivot, even when you're midlife, right, is a testament to this kind of education, right?
Yeah, Eric, I really appreciate that. I love the idea of love of learning. And that love of learning is what one can expect at a place like Beloit or Allegheny, among colleges that change lives. We are here because of our love of learning and engaging in that process of learning, and our students engage in that. And as Eric said, this is not just learning here for those 4 years, but it's becoming a lifelong learner, and really appreciating how that shapes not just how one might get a job, but shapes their journey, their career pathways. And so at Allegheny, and the same is true of Beloit, a student should expect intellectual and personal growth, along this pathway. One of the things also is thinking from multiple dimensions, learning in multiple ways, learning through multiple lenses, not just learning one thing. You're not just going to be one thing. And in fact, our students shouldn't be something. They should be someone with a love and a passion for learning and moving forward. And so at Allegheny, we have our students take a major and a minor in an area completely unrelated to the major. And that's a distinction that helps promote problem solving through those multiple lenses. I just want to share one quote from an Allegheny alum, and I bet Eric, Beloit's got similar quotes as well, but this is a student who graduated with a major in neuroscience and a minor in theater, and went on to med school. And the student, the alum, wrote back and said, "I realized that the sciences and the arts are not mutually exclusive. In fact, they feed off each other and allow me to move forward in my medical career by improving patient interaction, treatment modalities, and finding the root cause of chronic issues rather than putting a temporary Band-Aid on a problem." That to me speaks to the deep learning and integration of learning that happens at places among colleges that change lives.
Yeah, I love that, Ron, that we go to the students' future selves at the end here, right? So the alumni that are out in the world, having been transformed by these college experiences at Allegheny or Beloit, and they recognize later on, you recognize oh, geez, that education actually changed me. It opened things up that I couldn't have done otherwise. So I think that's a wonderful story about the way in which we can look at alumni to give a testament for the kind of education. And I think what's also true is that what we're learning in the COVID moment, I was going to mention this early on, is that there is with Zooming, which has its own faults, but with Zooming, there's now all this possibility of alumni who recognize how the institution changed their lives coming back, right? And engaging current students in classrooms or in professional networking. And so that recognition that the 4 years extends way into a life. And it's so gratifying, right, to have those alumni come back in and mentor and teach and engage with students as their future selves, as a way of demonstrating how to take advantage of everything that these schools have to offer during the 4 years. Yeah, I think that's a great way to think about this future potential.
Well said, and something that we'll look forward to in the future. Engaging alumni from around the world, yeah. Now that we have the technologies in place.
I'm ready to go back to college after hearing all of that. We've got a few minutes for a couple of audience questions, starting with what is campus life like this fall? How is it different? Will it still feel like college?
Campus life is different. It's absolutely different than what it was before the pandemic. I walk around campus daily. I try to interact with students. I have open office hours every week in our campus center for students to come and visit. And to a T, every student that I've spoken with is passionate about being here on campus. They're grateful to be on campus. They want to be connected. But life on campus, everybody's wearing facial coverings when they're out. I'm in my office now, but I'm not because I'm in my office closed off. But when we're out and about on campus, when I leave this evening, I'll have a face covering. We're maintaining physical distancing. Our dining halls are set up differently. Our facilities are operating differently, but there is still that personal engagement, that sense of community by being present with each other. That I get emotional when I think about how committed our students are to this endeavor. So it's very different, but there's still that sense of community that our students express they feel while they're here.
Yeah, and Ron, I'll just add, I mean, that's true at Beloit as well. And it's probably true at Allegheny that more people are outside. Maybe, as it gets colder, I mean, we now have heaters under tents to help us stay warm, but the kind of outside engagement of campus this fall has been huge, right, Ron? I mean, more people outside enjoying themselves. And so it's an interesting way of using the campus and enjoying your peers, very different than what it was a year ago, but at the same time, students are finding a way. They continue to find a way. And it's different. It might even be strange, but it's hard to say if it's a diminishment or not, because I think there's a true north here too, is that the students, they don't want to be anyplace else, even though they have to wear masks. And I think that's a testament to the kind of schools that we are.
Thank you both. Next question. Why do you think liberal arts colleges are doing better at managing COVID on campus?
I think so at Beloit we have a saying. It's self-care is community care. It's just a recognition that we're in this together, and it's a small tight-knit group, and it's not just students. It's students recognizing that they have a responsibility and commitment to their faculty, that they have a responsibility and commitment to the people who clean their dormitories, and we need to treat each other in a way that's respectful and demonstrates that we care deeply about other individuals' health. I just think we live that every day. It's in the groundwater. It was already there in the DNA. I think it was already there, but COVID just allowed it. This is a place where this is the kind of engagement with your community. And I can tell you, this is why small liberal arts you live in every nook and cranny. I mean, you learn in every nook and cranny. So you don't just go to class and come back from class and do things. What you do on campus outside of class is also factors into the transformational experiences you have. And I think students realize that their out of class experiences with staff, right, is as important in some ways as what happens in the classroom. And so that kind of commitment to community, that's all about the learning. That was actually pretty gratifying to see. Ron, is that?
I think that hits it directly. It is that sense of community and that sense of commitment to each other as part of this community. Our students and our people across campus feel accountable and are holding each other accountable, not in a negative way, but in a positive way, right? And that engaging the learning process. And I think another way in which, you know, small liberal arts colleges and those colleges that change lives are doing well, or, you know, as well as can be expected at this moment, is because, again, of the ways in which we think more than in just one manner, where our plan is multifaceted. And there's a nimbleness to what we can do, being a small liberal arts college, that might not happen the same way at other places. And so that ability, as things might come up in front of us, we have a way to address that and then move through it, or around it, over it, disassemble it, whatever we have to do to move forward. I think happens on campuses like ours.
Thank you. And last question, I think we have time for one more. How are the seniors who graduated in the spring doing?
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, right. What an awful situation if you think about it from a certain perspective. You don't get to graduate, and then you launch yourself into an economy with few jobs. But I can tell you, so at Beloit, that was so apparent, the ways in which we needed to find a way to love on the senior class like no other time. And so we actually instituted Beloiters Helping Beloiters, which is about 150 alumni of alumni across the career spectrum, across the nation, came back and mentored. It was about 60% of the senior class, ensuring that that they found ways of networking and thinking about their futures. So again, this is an example of the recognition that we don't just push you towards graduation, right? We're thinking about you as the graduation as a launching pad for your future selves, which is also our responsibility. So, you know, I think people are doing as well as they can be. They've continued to be well supported, but we need to, again, lean into that. And there might be a way in which the seniors who graduated last May, we need to come back and check in again and again, even this year after they're graduated. I think it just occurred to me I should write that down.
Yeah, that reconnecting, engaging, and outreach. So we've been, you know, typically our graduating class, there's ongoing outreach about what they're doing, how they're doing, connecting them with alumni, trying to understand what their pathways are in that first 6, 8, 12 months after graduation. And we too are engaging those students in different ways, trying to leverage the amazing alumni that come from our campus who want to be engaged in supporting our students. And we couldn't do commencement in person last spring, so we're actually doing that in a few weeks from now. We have our fall commencement, and so we're sending out the invites, and we have students enthusiastically signing up. Not everybody can come back, but those who can't, we'll have live stream, and we're sending them really special care packages. And so we look forward to engaging them in that honor of a commencement ceremony.
Oh, that's great. And I think that puts us just about at time. Ron, Eric, thank you very, very much for the insightful remarks and for being with us this evening.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to our presenters. We really appreciate you guys being here. And thank you for all your students for joining us. When you close this window, there will be a link to a very quick 4-question survey that we'd appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions we are hosting, so be sure to sign up for additional sessions that might be of interest to you. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording, as well as all the other sessions recording. With that being said, thank you very much to everyone, our presenters and students for attending, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day, evening, wherever they are. So thank you all.